Welcome to your weekly dose of
Realty Check.
I'm Carly Fridman.
And I'm Michelle Morris.
Thanks so much for joining us today. So what we're going to focus on is we're going to do a debunking of the selling sunset, the agency, the $1 million listing kind of
TV
real
shows.
estate TV shows and what it really is like to be a real estate agent. And we're going to answer some Q&As that are going to show you a little step into the real life of what we do and what it's been like for us to build a real estate career.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about what our highs of the week are. Tune in.
So Michelle, how was your week? What was your high, your low, your hilarious? What made you happy?
My high, well, as you know, we've started on a new construction project. We got into the project about 2 weeks ago. Everything's firm and final now. So that's a completely different ball game for me. I've never done new construction on rental side, yes, with actually the same developer, which is exciting. I really enjoy working with the developer, but sales is completely different because a rental, I can tell the client, listen, it's temporary, right? So if they move into the rental and they hate the rental, they don't like the layout or they don't like the area, it's very easy to move out 12 months later. But this is a huge purchase, and you're purchasing something that you're solely looking at a two-dimension plan. That's all you're seeing. So it's been a different experience, and I mean, we're just at the beginning of it, so we'll see kind of how it turns out. The exciting part is we are in the West Island and we're selling a beautiful product.
Yeah,
so
it really is a stunning product, that's for sure.
It makes it a lot easier and a lot enjoyable versus other places right now or other areas of Montreal where it's a lot more difficult to be on new construction. We hope that we're going to sell out hopefully by the end of the year.
Yeah, so far they're doing pretty well with the project. Yeah. And I think that this is your first exposure to selling on plan.
Yeah.
And I've always said that selling on plan is a very different volet of real estate. Like, it's not the same. It's like shopping online. And I love to shop online, but when you shop online, you order and you can return. This you can't really return.
There's like that security there.
Yeah. And it's like you're buying a dream. You're buying a projected idea. You can't walk through it, and already people have a really hard time with layout in general. And in this case, it's you have really no idea. You know, a room that's 11 by 14 feels like one way, but can also feel completely different based on where the windows are and where the closet is and where the plugs are. So it's a very different thing to sell people, and I think it takes a lot of adapting. You're also selling a lifestyle of living in a certain building versus actually seeing it and knowing the type of people that are already there. So it's definitely a different type of challenge, and we're excited and ready for that challenge. And as you know, I have a lot of experience with pre-construction, and I think that what was pre-construction
4 or 5 years ago,
even like 7 years ago, was not what it is today. You know, like there was in pre-construction, a project would launch and people would sleep outside and line up, and they would be bussed in, and there'd be these amazing pre-construction parties for brokers and clients, and there would be like the pre-sale and this sale, and it was really just a very exciting thing because you were getting in on the ground floor of a project. You were paying very low interest. You were getting, compared to what it is today, obviously. And you were getting something that you knew the future value was going to go up because the market was so high and it was kept going. Now you're buying in an uncertain kind of market, and you don't really know what the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years can be. And that's why a lot of these projects are having a hard time versus what we're working on in the West Island is really cool because it's
occupied.
Well, and it's also the delivery date is in 11 to 14 months. So basically you don't have to wait that long, and you don't have to, get on board with something 4 years in advance. So that's kind of a great selling feature for what we're working on, and it gives a little bit of stability. But
the main struggle I'm having, and I think we'd almost have to do like a whole episode on misconceptions of new construction. The main struggle I'm having is people come in through the sales office, they love the project, fantastic, but what you don't realize is you have to give, for example, on our project, 15% up front. Well, you need that liquidity without having already sold your property, right? Because it's in a year's time. So either you sell your property
and you
rent for a year, right? But then you have to find something that balances out, which we have a solution for, at least for us, but you have to find something that would match up. And then to get the liquidity out, or you get the liquidity out, and so it's a little bit that's what people don't realize. I love the project. I'm interested in it, but I'll come see you. I'm like, it's not going to be here in a year's time. So you need to have the liquidity right away.
And interest rates are higher, so it makes it harder for someone to put the liquidity out of their house. For example, a lot of these people that we're meeting have paid off their homes. They're retiring. They're downsizing. So they have a really good amount of liquidity in their home, but they're almost forced to pull the liquidity out of their home at a very high interest rate to be able to do the down payment, and that's not necessarily advantageous for them. Or some people can't even afford to do it. So it's a luxury product, but there's luxury and there's luxury. And when we're selling pre-construction in downtown, it's like, how can you really screw up 650 square feet? You can't. And they're optimizing the layouts to maximize the square footage, whereas in the projects that we're working on now, the square footage is huge. So
because the clientele is downsizing from these massive homes in the West Island, so you need large square footage. But it's also, that's another thing, is to tell someone what 1,700 square feet is that has lived in a home for their whole life. They have no idea.
No, they have no idea.
And then you're buying gross, which means you're buying the walls, everything, and then so you have about 6-7% that's going to be reduced from your total square footage.
What you're buying is you're buying without the walls.
The box.
Being finished.
You're buying the box.
The box. And so like based on having columns or molding or a wall that comes in, all those things will take away from your square footage, and they're allowed to do that. It's not a big change. The other thing that I'm finding that people are having a hard adjustment with, and I was like the worst when it came to pre-construction on the last 2 projects I worked at, like TDC, there was no modifications. But I want a bath. There's no bath. But I want the sink there. You can't do that. But I want purple. You can't have it. Buy it and then do whatever you want. But the developer's doing these 3 colors and doing this is the layout, and tough. We have a little bit more flexibility in what we're doing now, but that comes with a high price tag, so it's not really flexibility. So it's very hard to tell someone who's lived in their home and been able to pick their sink and their bathtub and moved where they wanted and, you know, have this high and whatever. They're not used to it. And when you tell them that it can't be done or it has to be done for a massive fee, they're kind of very taken back from it all. You know, it's like, and I'm thinking to myself, just wait until they move in and they realize there's no toilet paper holder or mirrors. Like, and that's to someone, it's completely shocking, you know? Yeah. So that's a pretty good high. I think it's going to be definitely going to keep you inside all summer.
Yeah, it'll definitely keep me busy, and which is exciting because we definitely are in a quieter market.
The market is
as long as you keep yourself busy, that's all that matters.
Yeah, the market is quieter, but it takes a lot of more. I think it takes more time and effort to get through each sale. Everything's a little more complicated. People are a little bit more on edge, and I think that when the recession actually hits, because it is coming, I think people will feel a little bit more freedom, because there's nothing scarier than what's to come if you don't know how it's going to impact you. And I think once the recession hits and people get their footing again, the market will pick up, and things are selling, and there are visits, and there is movement. But I saw a property the other day, really nice property in Westmount on a fantastic street, under $2 million. So most of the houses on that street are really like in the mid 3s to all the way like $8-9 million. Good size house, semi-detached, needs renovation, 4 floors. Everything about this property was really interesting. And so I saw it with my clients, and the broker told me she had like 22, 23 visits, and no one's made an offer. Wow. That's a lot of visits without an offer. And everyone comes in and they want to get into this house and they want to get on this street, but it's a very hard price range because someone has to spend that kind of money, which is in that area. It's a first home or not far from it. And then they have to put in another $500,000. No one really has $500,000 liquidity sitting around. Yeah. And to mortgage that on top of your mortgage, you're getting into payments that are like going to be $15,000 a month to hold this house. And that's a lot of liquidity and cash holding that a lot of people can't do. So I think people are on one end still reaching in their budgets in certain markets and still spending the money, and others are pulling back, and it makes for like a very nervous kind of market. But, you know, at the same time, we're getting accepted offers on things that I really didn't think we would even get offers. And I'm getting visits on things that I know are grossly overpriced, but still I'm getting visits, whereas my colleagues in the same building for something that I think is a little more fairly priced won't get any visits. So it's kind of, you know, it's an unpredictable kind of market. There's no rhyme or reason for sure. So there's also a lot of smoke and mirrors out there, I think, and people who are posting the same sold listing 6-7 times, that are, you know, people pushing the same sold listings on, you know, in their ads and stuff like that, because there's just, as a broker, you don't want to seem like you're not doing anything and stagnant, but at the same time, the public doesn't necessarily get it, but I mean, we as brokers see it because we're more in tune with what's selling. And if you look at the amount of sales, it's just not the same. And it's okay to advertise your properties, and it's until it's sold, by the way, and then you can't do it anymore. But, you know, it's just, we're seeing a lot of people who are struggling and faking it until they make it that really shouldn't be in that position anymore. It's just the market is tough on everybody.
You want to talk about your high of the week? Your birthday?
Well, I mean, that's a pretty good high. I mean, I had a great time in New York for sure. And it's, you know, talk about how the market's hard. So I love a good shopping vacation, we all know. And so walking around shopping and hanging out with a friend of mine who's actually a real estate broker in Ottawa and was my college roommate. And she was out on the phone having she's the best person to travel with, because literally you could be at a dinner table, you can I could be shopping and our phones would ring and we walk, and I'm talking to Michelle running down the street talking about an offer or whatever. She's talking to the gentleman she works with on our team. So it really balances out really well that she's never insulted. I could get up from the table, she wouldn't care. I'm on my phone the whole time and she wouldn't care. So I'm in the store in Sandro, which is one of my favorite brands, and I don't know how I brought it up to the sales guy that I was a real estate broker. Or I think I had said oh, could I wear this to work? And he was like, well, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a real estate broker. He's like, me too. No. He's like, I'm a real estate broker at Engels and Volkers. And I was like, no way. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, what do you specialize in? And young guy must have been in his maybe between 24 and 27. I don't know. Sometimes men don't age. They look super young, but he was very young. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I've worked for a couple of teams, and now I work on my own. And I've worked for the agency, and I work for Engels and Volkers. And he literally, this guy I think has changed teams 7 times in his career. And I think he's been a broker for 4 years. But I was asking him how is it? He's like, it's really tough. And he's like, I do a lot of leasing, and and New York leasing is completely different than rentals here. It's a full-on business. You can just do that and make great money. Like we were saying on our last episode, you can make great money doing rentals here, but that in New York, it's just a whole different dynamic. Anyway, so he's telling me all this, and I'm like, oh, and you know, how's the market? And he's like, it's a little bit harder, and it's, you know, it's a hard time. And it was just so funny to meet someone else who does
everyone's
real
kind
estate
of feeling it in a different country.
In a different country, in a different area, because everyone, the States is already in the recession, at the beginnings of a recession. And he picked up his phone and he looked me up on Instagram, and he's like, wow, that's so cool. And it was just really interesting to meet someone out of context. And, you know, I've done it in the past. I didn't do it this time, to go and visit properties, get to go and see them and get to see what a different market is. But it was just, you know, and on my fun birthday weekend, I got to meet another real estate broker. Why not?
Maybe it's a contact.
Maybe it's exactly. I took his card. You never know. You never know. Someone might move from the Big Four to Montreal from New York. So that was kind of cool. That and, you know.
Eating.
Lots of eating. Yeah. And seeing Nikki Hilton. That was kind of cool.
Oh, you did?
Next to her. Yeah, I saw her at a store with her daughter. That was really fun, too. I love Chuck Fancy, yeah. She's very, chill, down to earth, wearing her Birkin 35 and a baseball hat, so you wouldn't know who she was.
Was security or no?
No security.
Okay.
Nope. And her kid's sitting by herself, and she's in the changing room.
Oh, my God.
But it's not LA, right? New York's just very chill, and people don't really care the same, you know? But it was definitely a high of the week.
For sure.
Yeah.
Shall we get into questions?
Yeah, so we're going to do something a little bit different. I mean, how different can it be from the first episode to the second episode? But Miranda is here with us today, and she has some questions for us, because I don't know if you've checked, but the new season of Selling Sunset is out on Netflix, and I have a full-on disdain for reality TV real estate. Selling Sunset's the only one that has really nothing to do with real estate. It's not real estate.
But see, I don't think they have actual licenses, is what I've heard.
Well, didn't Christine Quinn come out with this whole thing where she said that They weren't even selling the houses. They weren't listings. Half the girls didn't have real estate license. Like, let alone the fact that, like, let's be honest, honey, like, every day I'm constantly aware of what I'm wearing to work, like fashion-wise, because like we're talking about clothes and that I love to shop.
Yeah.
I'm constantly aware of what I'm wearing for so many reasons. One, because I want to be taken seriously as a woman, and I don't want to be too sexy. Two, because I want to make sure that I'm not wearing anything that would offend my clients or make them feel that I'm, you know, not appropriate for the position, i.e., same thing with my car. Like, I'm not wearing designer. I'm not wearing, you know, anything that, I'm not wearing Lululemons. I'm dressed formally and I'm dressed understated because I just don't want the client to ever say anything or interpret anything based on what I wear. I wish I had a uniform sometimes. And also, I get dressed based on the fact that I know I'm going to have to take off my shoes. And it kills me that these girls are walking up and down all these stairs and down driveways in 9-inch heels. Like, that's not realistic. Like, I said that to a friend recently about the shoes, and he's like, it's California. It's not dirty. They don't take off their shoes. You have to take off your shoes. Like, you're in someone else's house, especially if you're with, like, for example, the Chinese community or the Asian. It's a sign of disrespect to not remove your shoes. I cannot tell you how many times that I get trapped going into a place that I swear to God my feet are cleaner and my shoes are cleaner than the house.
Yeah.
But I'm barefoot and I have to take off my shoes. And it sucks, but you gotta do it.
I did a visit with a broker the other day. She takes her little socks out of her purse. I was like, that's genius.
Well,
you always have to have.
At Humanity, I had a broker, Chinese. She had a little Ziploc bag and rolled up. She had all those little booties that we have at the showroom.
Yeah.
And she handed them to me and she handed them to my client and she has here the boots.
Genius.
I used to do that in the winter.
Genius.
So they wouldn't have, older people wouldn't have to take off
Yeah.
But like, that's genius. First of all, you fall on your face, but like, genius.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, that's great. So it doesn't make sense you're wearing like
8-inch
9-inch Louboutins when
But
you're
I
showing
wonder
a
if
house.
it's just like that in LA.
I don't know. So
Like, I would love to speak to an LA broker.
Well, on the agency, it's not
From the agency and
if
be
you look
like,
at
what
the
do you
agency,
think
they're
of
not wearing the
Oppenheim?
same thing. They're like overly dressed, but they're not wearing like, you're not wearing where are you going in your gown? And brokers opens, by the way, they're not themed, and you're not wearing a Dolce & Gabbana gown, and like it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's just like, it doesn't make sense. Maybe it is the reality for them, but I really don't think so. And it's really all it is showing that like you're physically what you look like is more important than your brain. You know, like dressing like a model is more important than being a real estate broker, and that irks me to no end.
I think they just turn it up for the TV show a lot.
But it's like there's turn it up a little bit, and then there's like turn it up, and that's I can't. So for me, it's not even reality TV. It's like a sitcom.
Yep.
If you weren't a real estate broker, what would you be?
I think I'd be a stylist.
Yeah?
I think so. I mean, listen, I was studying to be a lawyer. I was studying to do copyright law, and I would have loved to do that. But I also think I would make a damn good personal stylist.
But is there a market for it in Montreal?
No, I wouldn't live here.
Yeah.
That's for sure. No.
So you'd be in a completely different space.
Completely different city, completely different everything. Yeah, I think that's what I would do. You?
I would have continued in policing. I would have done something
Security-based?
security-based, RCMP or something like that, which means I probably wouldn't be in Quebec and would not be making the same salary, would not have the same flexibility, would not have the same lifestyle.
Michelle would make a very good security.
Wild.
Sir,
Yeah.
excuse me, sir. I can't tell you how many times Michelle has done that to make sure if someone was leaving their parking spot
Yeah.
so that we could park in the spot.
But no, it would have been completely different life. And to be honest, even during COVID and everything that happened with law enforcement, I'm happy I didn't go into it, because to be a woman in law enforcement right now, it's scary. And especially with everything going on in Montreal at the moment, not for me.
No?
Everything happens for a reason.
100%. Listen, I thought my whole life I would never do this.
I wonder how many brokers, if you took like a survey, would say, yeah, I was born and I was like, that's it, I'm going to become a real estate broker. Because I feel like most people somehow fall into it.
I think so. I think that's kind of the way. I
Unless
think a lot of people.
Unless your parents were
Brokers?
huge brokers.
I mean, listen, I grew up in a family of real estate and I still didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's kind of, I don't know. But I think that it's also people do this business because they're very money driven. And then they get a damn rude awakening. But people come into this because they think it's fast money. That's why a lot of people became real estate brokers during the pandemic, because they thought it was quick cash. It's definitely not. And I think that's why also with the permit renewal that we just had, a lot of people didn't renew their permits. Yeah. And going forward, a lot of people will not renew their permits because this is not something you can do part-time, and this is not something that everyone succeeds at. It's like everything else in life, the 1% makes all the money. And most people who go into real estate fall out after the first 2 years.
And this year we were top 5?
Top 1% in Quebec, top 1% in Quebec, top 5% in Canada. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And that came with a lot of work. We didn't fall into it, and we don't, spend our days lunching and, sink a setting.
No.
Next question, Miranda.
What did you spend your first commission check on?
So in real estate, there's a pandemic called Weekend Rich. So when you get your check, brokers get this big chunk of change. And sometimes it could be $5,000, sometimes it could be $20,000. And when you're first starting in real estate, most people either don't understand or put it to the back of their mind that like that check you're getting is not the full amount of commission, right? So let's say we'll use $5,000. You get a $5,000 check. That $5,000 check, depending on how well you do as a broker, 52% goes to the government because you're in the highest tax bracket. Then even before that, your agency takes a cut. So your agency takes a percentage. Then your agency takes a fee for doing the transaction. Not everywhere, but I'm talking generally.
In our where we
are. And commission splits could be anywhere between 5% up to 30%, depending on what agency you work for and what level you're at. So right there goes most of your check. And then
if you work on a team, sometimes there's splits as well.
Correct. And then your team splits it. Then you have to pay whatever expenses you have.
Photos.
You've already paid those, so you have to go back
and deduct
that. So the photos, your gas, the time, your car, a gift. If you gave a gift to your client, not always required, but very appreciated. And really anything else that goes around with it. So at the end of the day, that $5,000 check that you get, you probably got $300, right? So that has to pay your rent, that has to pay your car payment, that has everything else, right? So you're like, maybe not. But when you first start in real estate, you become weekend rich, you get that check, and you're partying like a rock star. I think the first thing I spent, what I spent my first check on, I think is the Louis Vuitton key thing that I have, that I put all my cards and all my keys on. I think that's the first thing I bought. But I'm not sure. I remember what I bought myself when I first worked in advertising, my first day on the job when I got my contract. Because when you're working in an office, it's a little bit different.
It was like guaranteed money.
Guaranteed money.
Like, I'm getting a paycheck.
And I was making really good money for being 21 at the time. So the day I finished my first day I finished my job, I was working downtown. I walked from Square Phillips to Ogilvy's where Louis Vuitton was, and I bought a Speedo. I bought a Speedy 30. And that's all I wanted was this Speedy. And like, I was 21, so we're talking 17 years ago. And I think it was like $900 or something like that. And I was so proud and excited that I had gone and bought this bag for myself. I wore it I still have it. And it was just how proud I was that I got like a real big girl job and got it. My first commission check in. But I also my first year in real estate was a little bit different than most people. So.
Yeah.
Next question. Oh, wait.
Something I want to touch on, though, is, again, selling Sunset.
Yeah.
Or all these real estate shows. When they show you broker made X amount of commission, don't take it for, okay, that's what they got into their bank account.
No, and in the U.S., specifically in the U.S., that the agencies take a lot more percentage than they do in Quebec, for example. Like the reverse. Like you'll get 30% and the house will take 70, especially like, for example, selling Sunset. If Jason gave you the listing, Jason would get 70%, you would get 30% of the commission, plus the agency would take a cut of it.
And
so that
sometimes
$13 million
amount
is not that much cash, and you just spent 10 grand on your outfit.
Yeah.
Like,
but sometimes that amount too is what both brokers are splitting down
Yes.
the middle. So it's like split. Well, you're not left with a whole lot from that one
and
sale.
I think the commissions on selling Sunset look so sexy and big, but like you have to understand that you're making a percentage of what the homeowner is also making. So if they're selling houses for $250 million, that person who's selling that house is probably making $250 million. So, or whatever, on a $250 million house, you don't really have a mortgage. Yeah. So that person's clearing all this cash. And if they're only making 4% or 5%, great, it's great money. And of course, but their expenses are higher and all that. So it's relative, like we're getting commission in Quebec is anywhere between 3% to 6%, depending on your area and what you're selling, etc. So that's a percentage that covers the fees of what it is. And like, it drives me a little bit bonkers that the commission is posted and we're talking about the commission and people are seeing it and it's a point of criticism. But you don't go to your lawyer and your lawyer's like, oh, I'm $350 an hour. And you don't say to your lawyer, oh, I don't want you to make that much money. You want the best lawyer, so you're going to hire them and you're going to pay for that lawyer, right? Like you're going to pay the $350. Are you going to be upset that your bill's going to be a fortune? Yeah, but you're going to pay the lawyer anyways. So I don't really understand as a real estate broker how all the time our commission, which is our hourly wage blocked together, is up for discussion. Like some transactions, I literally could work at McDonald's and make more hourly.
Yeah.
There are other transactions where, I clear a check and it was easy peasy and I didn't have much to do, but this is a career. The client's not going to give me less money because it went swimmingly. Like they agree on a percentage and that's it. And in this market that we're in, brokers have to work, they should always work really hard for their clients, but right now we have to work extra hard and it's taking extra hours because you can't just sit there and wait for a property to sell. You have to be proactive. You have to put in the hours. You have to show up for the visits so that you're doing your best for your clients so they can sell and take their money out.
Yeah. Rhonda?
What peeves you the most about these TV shows?
Is the commission. So you when you tell someone, oh, I'm a real estate broker, like during COVID, you must make a lot of money. Yeah. You must be doing really well. Yeah, well, I work really hard. And
not everybody did well during COVID, by the way.
No.
If you had no listings and you were a buyer's broker or you didn't know a lot of people,
you were running à gauche à droite.
And every client that you took out made offers on 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 properties because everything was selling in multiple offers. So money wasn't guaranteed. The money was great if you were a listing broker, which we list property, so it's great. But if you were a buyer's broker, it was tough coming. Like this was not an easy, COVID wasn't necessarily easy. So
yeah, it's the misconception on the income.
That's what peeves you the most?
Yeah.
What peeves me the most, hands down, is that it makes women look stupid. And already I find in every industry, women have to fight a little bit harder to be taken seriously. And I find it does us a disservice. Like, I work in a formal way. I love a cute outfit. I love to be friendly and bubbly. But, I find it totally disrespectful to other women to sell yourself or put your physicality before your brain. It really bothers me. And the level of cattiness that's shown on the show also is very irritating to me because I think it just shows, the perception of women is very negative on that show. And I think that it doesn't show the women as strong and powerful and smart and, good at their jobs. It shows them as if they're literally like bottle service girls, but selling property. And that to me is just, it's a level of it's just distasteful. And it just makes my job that much harder. Michelle and I, funny enough, always are very confused by the fact that we never get hit on at work. I don't get hit on by clients ever, and neither do you.
No, and I remember when I first started, when I first started, I was single, and I would have people write to me on Instagram, men write to me on Instagram, and I'm looking for a rental, or I'm looking for this, and I would tell Carly, like, we'd debrief, and she would literally, like, can we go for lunch to discuss? Carly's like, no one's going for lunch with you to discuss
real estate. Like, unless it's this huge project and you need a meeting, a phone call will suffice, and you don't need to go for dinner at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. No. It's just not professional. And at first, when you're so excited to get into it, you're like, wow, a prospective client, and you have like blinders on almost. And I wasn't able to see that they weren't there for the right intentions. Yeah. And thankfully, you were like, Michelle, this doesn't make sense. Yeah. You know, like, ask them for a pre-approval. Oh, you don't have a pre-approval? Then you're going to go meet with my mortgage broker. You don't want to sit down with my male mortgage broker, most likely, and divulge your financial information. Unless you're serious.
For sure. You can't skip to step 2 without going to see my mortgage 100%. Broker. And that was kind of like the good, oh yeah, I'll set up an appointment with you with RBC, with CIBC, with Desjardins. Yeah. But no, I'm not going to go for dinner with you.
No, and there's nothing wrong with going for dinner with a client once the transaction's concluded and you've built a relationship. As we said last time, they're your best friend for the week. Yeah. And like, that's fine, because it's very, it shows that they appreciated your time, and you can sit down and I've had clients invite me over for barbecues or to their house for dinner. That's very different. But, I've never met a prospective, boyfriend or anything like that working. I've never been hit on at work. And it's because of the way that I hold myself, and because I don't go that direction. And I think that selling Sunset opens up that door to give people the perception that that's what happens. And that's just, to me, that just sits really badly. So that's what irks me the most.
What was the worst thing that happened in your first year as a real estate broker?
I think it was not choosing, because yes, clients choose us, but we can choose client. That's what people don't realize, I think, is like, you are not doing me the greatest service by being my client. If you're not going to treat me with respect, or you're going to waste my time, well, I won't work with you. Simple as that. And I think that it was realizing who was worth my time, as bad as it sounds, and who wasn't, and who was just dragging me through the mud, and through visits after visits after visits, and contradicting themselves on what they liked, and to come to realize you're not actually serious about finding a place. So I think it was narrowing down where to spend my energy and my time.
I think also another thing that is important in that statement is that when you keep a client, and you do choose clients and they do choose you, when you keep a client that's draining your energy and not being productive and is negative, what ends up happening is they poison the pool.
Yeah.
So if you're spending all of your time and energy on that client, they're putting you in a certain mindset, and that's doing a disservice to the rest of your clientele. And sometimes it can be a listing, and sometimes it can be a buyer. You got to just cut the cord and be like, you know what, this is not for me. And I learned a strategy with that's super beneficial is sometimes if it's just not the right fit, or we're just not getting along for a listing, for example, I'm very quick to say, you know what, I'm not great for you, but I know who will be, and to refer it. So at least you're getting a referral on the back end from a client, from a broker, or a friend that's a broker, or someone that you trust. And in the end, what's going to end up happening is it'll balance itself out. You'll still get paid for the hard work that you did if they sell it. And at the same time, if you don't sell it, at least you tried.
And you still salvage that relationship.
And with the client too, the client will appreciate you being honest and saying, listen, this is not working, but with someone else, it'll work better. So it doesn't always happen, and it doesn't always work, but it's, I have a few colleagues that's worked with, and same thing with me. They're going to lose a listing. They might as well.
We do it between both of us too. Like, if I just don't click with the client, then I'll pass them over to Carly, and Carly might click with them better. Or I tell her, like, listen, be very careful with these things, and she can already nip it in the butt from the beginning, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Sometimes, Carly, you've lost patience for the client. Yeah. And to keep that good relationship, it's, can you go on a visit with them, and can you handle it from here? And brokers too. Some brokers prefer to work with me. Some brokers prefer to work with Carly.
For sure.
Because you have a relationship with them. That's fine.
Yeah. The worst thing that happened to me my first year in real estate, it's actually pretty funny. I had done a visit with a broker in a condo building. And still to this day, I think he did it on purpose, but we're going to go with, he said it was an accident. So I went down to the garage to take a picture of the parking spot for my client who had to leave. And I went down to the parking garage and he showed me where it was, let in. He's like, oh, I got to go. And he left. And he locked me in the parking garage. I couldn't get out the front door and I couldn't get back into the building. And I had to call him. I also got trapped in an elevator, but that was my first year in real estate. I also got trapped in an elevator for like a good 45 minutes.
With the client?
430 McGill. Yeah, with the client. Needless to say, we didn't buy in the building, but that was, I have the world's smallest bladder, so all I thought is, oh my God, I'm going to pee my pants in this elevator.
What's the one thing you wish you did that other brokers do?
Oh my God.
I wish.
I didn't even think about that. Door knock and cold calling.
Those are the two things that I wish I felt represented me better or that I could do. And
that you had the guts to do.
Or the guts to do that other brokers do. Like, there's no door knocking for me. There's no cold calling. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, I'm a very confident person. I'm a very social person. But even when I have to call someone who's called me directly to talk to me, when I call them, I get like that sense of like that pang of anxiety that like, before they answer the phone. So like to call a random person who's going to like be nasty to you, like, no, thank you. It doesn't interest me.
I'm worried about the like to be rejected almost, but
no one likes rejection.
No, but if someone calls us and for our listing, I'm more than happy to call them because I'm like, you want something that I have.
It still makes me nervous to talk to random people on the phone.
I'm like, hi, like, yeah, you want no problem. But to call them out of the blue and to be told to F off, I don't have the balls to do it. And I've cold called once in my life. I think it was like my second year.
Yeah, but then you got smart.
My second year, people. Carly tells me you're gonna start cold calling. And I was like, oh my God, she's never cold called. Why the hell should I cold call?
Because you work for me.
She said, go sit in your car because it's quiet, which is actually smart. If you do cold call, you can do it from your car. That way no one hears you like in your house or your office. So I sat in my car. I must have done it maybe 2 days. We did get a listing.
We did.
We got a listing. He was super sweet. And after that, I was like, you know what? Success. I'm done. That was great. Not doing that
Michelle's
strategy.
not the one who's like, oh, I did it well, so I'm going to keep doing it. I did it once. I was like, Carly will shut up for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Never again. But yeah, I wish we cold called and we door knocked because it does work. We know a broker very well that does it and she gets excellent results from it.
She does. Yeah.
Excellent results.
What has been your favorite selling experience?
To be honest, and selfishly because I get to benefit from it, was we purchased during the pandemic a cottage for my father. And since we were young, I grew up skiing. So we were always up north and we always rented cottages. And so this was like, it was a purchase, but it was a purchase selfishly that I knew that we could benefit from it also. And what's nice about it is he purchased it with the intention of going there once or twice a month. And since the pandemic, he maybe comes back to his Montreal house 2 or 3 times a week, and he lives up there full time.
Well, there you go.
And it transformed him as a person, and he's so much happier up there. So it was a good experience. It was extremely hard working with him.
Yeah, your dad's a little difficult.
Yeah, my dad's very difficult.
But good on you because I offered a couple of times to take it over.
Yeah.
But you
and the problem was also with like getting everyone to cooperate. Anyways, overall it was a fantastic experience. And what I love is who we bought the cottage from still to this day stops by the cottage and we have a relationship with him and he's a sweetheart. So it was a good experience and it was overall it's the benefit from it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, he's not using a city house. Maybe we'll get to sell it soon. Maybe I'll buy it. My favorite selling experience. I don't know. That's really hard. I think the one that I'm about to do now is going to be, I just get a feeling that the new listing I'm getting in Westmount is going to be one of my favorite selling experiences.
Really? I feel like there's going to be a lot of hurdles.
There's going to be a lot of problems, going to be a lot of hurdles, there's going to be difficulty, but already the time I've spent with this woman is I know I'm going to change her life.
Yeah.
I'm going to, by selling her home, and this, we don't save lives. Like I'm not
No, we're not doctors.
I'm not overhyping myself, but this woman feels trapped by her home. And it's more than she can handle. And she's 80 years old and she's been taking care of it herself. Like we had a pre-purchase inspection yesterday just because the house is a full gut job. Like I can't believe she's still living in this house. She doesn't have proper plumbing. And the inspector mentioned that she should caulk put caulking around the skylight as one of the things that needs to be done on the list that someone will have to do, and why there was water. And she's like, what kind of caulking would I buy? And I'm like, you're not going to the roof to do this. And she's like, why? I've done all the other things. When the inspector went to the roof, she's like, I'm going with him. I'm like, no, you're not. You're 80. Like, what do you do? But she's so cool. This woman has done everything for herself, and she's worked her butt off. And it's just, this house was given to her by her parents. She's lived here since she was a kid.
Wow. She's
in her 80s, and she's trapped by this home. She's living in a home with not proper plumbing, like I said, with like over-hoarded. It's just, she's stuck with it. And she said yesterday, and this is why I know I think it's going to be one of my favorite selling experiences. We're sitting in the basement, and there's the main pipe, and it's split because all the pipes are cast iron. And the inspector's like, this is literally a bomb waiting to go off. And she's like, this is very bad. And she goes, no, it's very good. And he goes, what do you mean it's very good? I'm like looking at her like she's nuts. She goes, because of this pipe and because of that woman, I'm going to get my life back.
Wow.
And I was like, holy moly. Like, and it's a total gut job, but it's an easy sell in terms of like everybody wants this property.
Yeah.
And we've already been through a situation where someone's already tried to take advantage of her, and I feel a sense of responsibility that I'm not going to let anybody take advantage of her, and I'm going to get her out to do something. It's stuff like that to me that really make me love what I do, because it's nice to have easy transactions and meet nice people, and
yeah,
you know, when people get married or have kids and do it on the positive. But when someone's living in a negative experience, whether it be divorce or a house that they can't afford or a repo, like the client that we almost had that ended up getting her house taken away from her, you're helping them. And it's such a good feeling to know that what we do actually matters in people's lives. So I think that's going to be an interesting one.
What's the most you've made in a quarter?
Well, because of all these real estate shows, how much money you make is really important. And I think that it's going to sound unrealistic because it's not, it's a windfall, right? Like you work and work and work and work and work, and then it's just how all the notary days fall. So it's like, as a strong broker, you're doing 40, 50 transactions a year. Those transactions can be divided in any which way, but sometimes they all fall. Like you'll have a quarter where, let's say you make $1 million a year, you'll have a quarter where you make 500,000 of that $1 million. And then the next quarter you make 20K. So that's why, you know, you got to balance it out. The most I ever made in a quarter was, I think, $325,000 in one quarter. But it was also the year that I sold the most expensive property that I've ever sold in my career, which is $7.5 million. We do luxury, but that's not our bread and butter. So that I think was my biggest quarter of my career, and it was not my biggest year, but that was my biggest quarter. You?
Like you said, because of how the notary dates fall, because I'm in rentals, most of my quarters are usually even-ish, which is nice for tax purposes.
Yes.
But the most I've made in a quarter is just over $100,000.
Which is pretty great for someone who's been...
Not so great for taxes.
Not so great for taxes, no.
But...
As if you run a business and you're incorporated, or even as a broker...
we're both incorporated. So
but even as a broker, you should be paying your GST, QST, when she says taxes, because commission is taxable. Your GST, QST should be paid quarterly, and that burns. Burns hard. Because, like I said, if the government... Everybody likes to take a cut of your money, right? So, at the end of the day... It's just that quarter you make more money, but that quarter's got to benefit your whole entire year and pay all your expenses. So, thank you so much for listening and joining us again this week. So next week, what we're going to do, or next podcast, because for us it's next week, for you we don't really know. We're going to put a question box on our Instagram, And we're going to ask you guys to post or to send us questions of misconceptions or things you don't know or you think you know about real estate.
Yeah. We're also going to do a smaller segment on first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
So anything you have questions regarding buying a home for the first time, whether it be mortgage or the process or
even first-time sellers.
Yeah, first-time
There's a lot of
sellers.
first-time sellers out
That's
there
true.
too.
We forget about them.
We forget about them because no
Like,
one
you've
stays in
done
their
it
house
once,
anymore.
you'll
Yeah,
figure it out.
But so thanks again for tuning
Thank
in.
you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.